Welcome to the Corporate Autopsy, where we open up the biggest brands in the world and show you exactly how the money died. In 2001, one of the biggest bookstore chains in America looked at the internet, decided it wanted no part of it, and handed its entire website over to a company called Amazon. For the next 5 years, every person who tried to buy a book from Borders online was quietly shopping on Amazon instead. Borders fed its customers, its data, and its future straight to the one company that would bury it. It was a giant, and it committed one of the most self-inflicted deaths in retail history. This is the Autopsy. For a while, Borders was not just a store, it was a destination. Picture a vast superstore with tall wooden shelves, well over 100,000 titles, and a cafe near the front pouring coffee. You could spend a whole Saturday there, reading magazines you had no intention of buying. At its height, it ran more than 1,200 locations across the country. It expanded into the United Kingdom, Singapore, and Australia, planting its name around the world. For book lovers, this felt like a company that would simply always be there. To understand how a giant like this dies, you have to go back to where it started, in a small college town. The year is 1971, and the place is Ann Arbor, Michigan. Two brothers, Tom and Louis Borders, open a tiny used bookshop of about 800 square feet. It is a story that starts not with failure, but with a genuinely brilliant idea. The brothers were not just booksellers. Louis in particular was fascinated by a harder problem. How do you know which books a store should actually stock? Most bookshops guessed. They ordered on instinct and hoped the titles would sell. Louis built a proprietary inventory and sales forecasting system that did the guessing with data instead. It tracked what real customers in a specific store were buying and predicted what they would want next. For close to 2 decades, that system was a genuine edge that rivals could not easily copy. Think about that for a second. Before the internet, Borders had already built its own private algorithm for books. It knew its shelves better than any competitor knew theirs. That advantage turned a single Ann Arbor shop into one of the most respected names in American retail, and that reputation attracted a very big, very hungry buyer. Through the 1980s, the brothers turned their data advantage into something much bigger. They helped pioneer the book Superstore, enormous shops with deeper catalogs than shoppers had ever seen. Where a mall bookstore carried a few thousand titles, a Borders superstore carried well over 100,000. Add comfortable chairs, a music section, and a cafe, and the bookstore became a place to linger. It was retail as an experience, long before that was a buzzword. By the early 1990s, Borders was a prize worth chasing. In 1992, the discount retail giant Kmart bought Borders for about $125 million. Kmart already owned the mall chain Walden Books, and it merged the two together. But running bookstores was not really Kmart's strength, and the marriage was uneasy from the start. Nobody watching in 1992 could have guessed this deal was the first loose thread. So in 1995, Kmart spun Borders Group off in a public stock offering. For the first time, Borders was an independent public company, answerable to Wall Street. Free and flush with cash, it went on a building spree. New superstores opened across the United States at a rapid pace. Then it pushed overseas, into Britain, Singapore, and Australia. By the late 1990s, Borders was the superstore leader, and the future looked limitless. And then, at the exact moment the ground was shifting, Borders made the decision that this whole autopsy comes down to. By 2001, it was obvious that people were starting to buy books online. A young company named Amazon had spent years building the plumbing for exactly that. This is the moment the corner circles in red. Borders had a choice: build its own online store or let someone else handle it. Building an e-commerce operation was expensive, slow, and outside its comfort zone. So in 2001, Borders handed its entire online business over to Amazon. If you typed in Borders.com, Amazon ran the site, took the orders, and shipped the books. Borders even let Amazon sit between it and its own online customers. On paper, it looked like a tidy way to outsource a headache. Let us be clear about what just happened on this table. Borders did not just skip the internet. It paid its biggest future rival to run the internet for it. Every online book lover Borders had was now learning to love Amazon's site instead. It handed its executioner the customer list and asked it to gift wrap the knife. For roughly 5 years, Borders had no real online presence of its own. It learned almost nothing about selling on the web because Amazon was doing all the learning. Meanwhile, Amazon used those years and everything it saw to get better and faster. The company that should have owned book buying online had rented that whole world to a competitor. When Borders finally looked up, the gap was already enormous. Amazon had turned a rival's own customers into rocket fuel. Here is the cruel irony. On the surface, Borders looked healthier than ever. In 2003, the chain hit its peak of 1,249 stores. But bigger was quietly becoming the problem, not the solution. More stores, more rent, and more shelves full of the wrong products. Borders kept opening giant stores, locked into long and expensive leases, and it doubled down on selling compact discs and DVDs right at the front of many stores. That would have been smart in 1996. In the mid-2000s, it was a disaster in slow motion. Apple had launched iTunes, and music was moving to downloads. Movies and shopping were moving online too, gutting exactly the categories Borders was betting on. The company was building more shelves for products the world was about to abandon. The numbers started telling the truth before the executives would admit it. 2006 was the last year. Borders turned a profit. After that, every year was a race to stop the bleeding, and the device that would finish the job was about to arrive. In 2007, Amazon shipped a small white gadget called the Kindle. For the first time, buying and reading a book took no store, no shelf, and no paper at all. This was the exact technology that could replace a bookstore entirely. The competition understood the threat and moved. Borders did not. In 2009, Barnes & Noble launched its own e-reader, the Nook, and fought for the digital shelf. Borders had no e-reader of its own until a partnership with Kobo in 2010, and by then it was far too late. It had also finally ended the Amazon arrangement around 2007 and 2008 and relaunched its own website. But that was roughly 7 years after handing the web away, and the lead was long gone. The customers had learned new habits, and those habits did not include Borders. Every move now was a late answer to a question rivals had solved years earlier. Underneath the surface, the mat was collapsing. Years of aggressive store expansion had left Borders buried in leases and debt. Sales were falling, digital was rising, and there was no cushion left. The giant that once felt permanent was running out of room. In February 2011, Borders filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. In its own filings, it pointed to years of aggressive brick-and-mortar expansion as a core cause. It tried to reorganize and find a buyer who would keep the stores alive. 40 years of history was now in the hands of a bankruptcy court. No rescue came. In July 2011, Borders began liquidating its remaining stores. 399 locations were marked for closure. Roughly 10,700 people lost their jobs. By September 2011, the last Borders stores closed their doors, 40 years after that first Ann Arbor shop. Barnes & Noble stepped in and bought the Borders trademarks and its customer list. The final indignity. Even the Borders customer list ended up belonging to someone else. And that was it. A chain that started in 1971 and once spanned the globe was gone. The shelf that held 100,000 stories held none. A generation of Saturday afternoons had nowhere left to go. An empire built on knowing its customers had, in the end, simply given those customers away. So, who killed Borders? Let us be honest about the whole autopsy. It was not that people stopped reading. They read more than ever, just on screens and from a red-logoed website. Borders was killed by a single, fatal habit. When the future showed up, it paid someone else to handle it. It outsourced its website to Amazon, clung to compact discs and giant leases, and met every new device a few years too late. The lesson on the table is simple. The thing you are too comfortable to build yourself is usually the thing that ends up owning you. The corporate autopsy is always open, and there is always another body on the table. Subscribe, and tell me which dead brand you want opened up next. And that is how the money died. If you want more corporate autopsies, subscribe, and I will see you at the next postmortem.